The plan was simple, a leisurely solo drive from Arkansas to New Orleans in the crisp autumn of 2021, soaking in the charm of Louisiana's winding back roads. I'd mapped out a route avoiding the sterile interstates, craving the authenticity of rural diners and the hum of my favorite podcasts. My trusty 2010 Ford Focus, nicknamed Blue, had been a reliable companion, packed with snacks, a charged power bank, and a playlist curated for endless highways. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth as I cruised through the quiet stretch between Alexandria and nowhere, the golden light of late afternoon casting long shadows across the road. Then it happened. A jarring rattle from under the hood, sharp and insistent, like metal grinding against metal. My stomach sank as the check engine light blinked on, a mocking amber glow. I eased the car onto the gravel shoulder, the tires crunching against the uneven ground. No cell signal, of course. I popped the hood, the heat rising in waves, and stared at the engine as if sheer willpower could diagnose the issue. The only sounds were the ticking of the cooling engine and the whisper of wind through the tall grass. I was alone, miles from anything resembling civilization. After 20 minutes of futile tinkering and muttered curses, a rusted pickup truck rolled up behind me, its faded white paint proclaiming Terry's Auto in uneven hand-sprayed letters. The driver, a tall, wiry man in his late 50s, stepped out. His leathery skin was etched with years of sun and grease, and his limp gave his walk an unsettling rhythm. He wore stained overalls and a baseball cap so grimy it seemed fused to his head. His smile was crooked, too wide for comfort, and his voice rasped like dry leaves. "Car trouble?" he asked, eyeing me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Explained the rattling, guessing it might be the serpentine belt. He nodded, scratching his chin. "Lucky you. My shop's just up the road. I'll tow you there. Take a look." No other cars had passed, and my phone was useless. Against the knot in my gut, I agreed. He hooked Blue to his truck, and we crawled down a narrow gravel path, the dense woods on either side swallowing the last of the daylight. The shop appeared in a small clearing, a squat metal building surrounded by overgrown weeds, its cracked sign reading, "Sure enough, Terry's Auto." Rust streaked the walls, and the air carried a faint metallic tang. Inside the garage, he rolled my car into a dimly lit bay and gestured toward a door. "Wait in the office. Won't take long." The office was a claustrophobic box, lit by a flickering fluorescent bulb that buzzed like a trapped insect. A broken ceiling fan spun lazily, stirring the stale air heavy with mildew and gasoline. The only window was covered by a thick tarp, stapled tightly to the frame, blocking any glimpse of the outside world. As Terry shut the door behind me, I heard the sharp click of a lock. My pulse quickened. "You just locked that," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Safety," he replied, already turning away. "Can't have folks wandering in while I'm working. Seen it happen before." His words felt rehearsed, like a line delivered one too many times. I sank into an ancient recliner, its springs groaning under my weight, the fabric stained with unidentifiable splotches. The room was wrong, too staged. The clutter, a pile of magazines from March 1998, felt deliberate. A wall clock was frozen at 3:12, its hands lifeless. The silence from the garage was deafening. No clanging tools, no hum of machinery, just the occasional faint metallic tap. Time dragged. Minutes bled into hours, the airless room warping my sense of reality. I sipped warm water from my bottle, trying to quell the rising panic. I knocked on the door, calling out to Terry. Silence. After what felt like an eternity, he returned, his smile as artificial as ever, hands smudged with grease. "Gonna be a bit longer. Something's stripped." I asked to wait outside, desperate for fresh air. "No can do," he said, his tone clipped. "Safety. Had kids mess with a lift once, not taking chances." The words sounded hollow, practiced. I paced the room, pretending to study the faded inspection certificates pinned to the wall. Then I saw it. A door, half hidden behind a shelving, unit stacked with air filters and fan belts. It wasn't an exit. just a flimsy interior door with a push lock. My heart raced. When I heard Terry's tools clanging again, I tugged the shelf aside, just enough to slip through. The door opened to a narrow hallway, dim and dusty, with a storage closet on one side and a grimy bathroom on the other. At the end was a door with a push bar. I shoved it open, stumbling into the back lot where tangled trees loomed over the clearing. Crouching low, I crept around the building, the tall weeds brushing against my legs. Through the garage's open bay, I saw Blue, hood still up, untouched, like a prop in a twisted play. I snapped a photo of Terry's truck license plate, my hands shaking, and bolted down the gravel path. My lungs burned as I ran, the highway a distant promise. An hour later, a kind older couple in a pickup stopped for me. I must have looked wild, sweaty, disheveled, eyes wide. But they listened. They drove me to the sheriff's station in the next town. The deputy's expression was grim as I recounted everything. "We've had complaints about Terry," he admitted. "Nothing we can pin down. Says he's just keeping his place secure." I pressed him. Why hadn't they acted? He shrugged. No proof of anything illegal. They escorted me back to the shop, a cruiser trailing behind. Terry was in the office, casual as ever. "She's back," he said, tossing me my keys. "Car's done." I didn't speak, just grabbed them and drove, the engine purring as if nothing had happened. A week later, cleaning out Blue's trunk, I found something that stopped my heart. Tucked between the spare tire and the paneling was a laminated card, like one you'd hang from a rearview mirror. No logo, no text on the front, but on the back in jagged red ink were the words, "Next time, don't run." My blood ran cold. I sold Blue a month later, unable to shake the feeling that it carried something sinister. Now, I stick to Maine, roads, share my itinerary with friends, and avoid charming detours. Terry wasn't just a creepy mechanic. He had a plan, and I'd escaped it. In the summer of 2022, I was chasing freedom on a solo music tour up the California coast. My guitar and a duffel bag my only companions. After a late-night gig in Chico, I couldn't face the drive to Eureka for my next show. Scrolling through Airbnb, I found a cheap cabin just outside Redding, $60 a night, rustic, private, perfect for creatives, with glowing reviews. I booked it, and the host responded instantly, their message brimming with emojis and enthusiasm. "Can't wait to meet you." The driveway was a long, dusty ribbon of gravel, flanked by brittle brush and silence. The cabin was more of a weathered bungalow, freshly painted but sagging under the weight of age. A rusty Jeep sat in the yard, and wind chimes tinkled eerily in the breeze. The host, a wiry man in his mid-40s, greeted me with a handshake that lingered too long. His cargo shorts and tank top reeked of varnish and sweat, and his questions came fast. Where was I going? Was I alone? Did anyone know I was here? I kept my answers vague, exhaustion dulling my instincts. Inside, the house was clean but sparse, the air heavy with the scent of pine cleaner. He insisted on a tour, leading me through the kitchen, living room, and back porch, locking each door behind us with a deliberate click. Blackout curtains draped every window, swallowing the daylight. In the kitchen, a mounted camera stared down from above the fridge, its lens pointed at the room's center. "You into security?" I asked, forcing a laugh. His smile stretched, too wide. "Out here, you gotta know who you can trust." My room was small, with a single bed and a nightstand. He lingered in the doorway, watching as I set down my bag. "Got a bottle of wine open," he said. "Come join me later." I mumbled a non-committal reply, and he finally left. I locked the door and shoved the dresser against it, the wood scraping across the floor. Sleep eluded me. Every creak of the house, every rustle outside set my nerves on edge. At 3 a.m., 3 soft knocks echoed from the door. I froze, heart pounding, but they didn't return. Morning came, gray and dim through the curtains. I reached for my keys. Gone. Not on the nightstand, not in my bag. Then I saw it. A note slipped under the door, the handwriting sharp and deliberate. "Don't leave until we talk." Panic surged. My phone had no signal. I crept down the hallway, the house silent except for the faint clink of dishes in the kitchen. The front door now sported a new padlock. Desperate, I remembered the garage he'd shown me, its glass door revealing a clutter of tools. I slipped out through a side door, circling to the garage. The air inside was thick with oil and dust. Tools hung in neat rows and shelves held labeled drawers, screws, bolts, spare parts. In that drawer, I found my keys glinting like a lifeline. A shout shattered the silence. Didn't want to do this the hard way. I sprinted to my car, gravel flying as I peeled out, the wind chimes clinking, fading behind me. At a gas station 2 hours later, I called Airbnb and the sheriff. The listing vanished a week later, the house registered to a woman in Brazil. No trace of the host. I was lucky, or smart, to trust my gut, but I'll never know what talk he had planned. It was a classic college road trip, born of restless energy and the urge to make memories before life turned serious. In spring 2022, my best friend Jess and I set out from Denver to Chicago, chasing quirky roadside stops, giant corn statues, retro diners, forgotten museums. The day started with laughter, playlists, and debates about post-grad plans. By western Nebraska, a surprise snowstorm dusted the highway, the sky a flat, lifeless gray. Jess dozed in the passenger seat, headphones in as I gripped the wheel, tires slipping on the slick road. A rest area sign appeared, promising a brick building with bathrooms and vending machines. The lot was nearly empty, save for an abandoned sedan and a running car with headlights on. Inside, a man and woman sat in the front seats mid-argument. His gestures were sharp, his voice cutting through the glass, though I couldn't make out the words. She sat rigid, hands folded, staring straight ahead, her face blank as a mannequin's. Something about her stillness unnerved me, like she was a passenger in her own body. I stepped out, the snow crunching under my boots, and glanced back. The man noticed me, his anger dissolving into a forced smile. He waved. "Everything okay?" I called, half concerned, half curious. "All good," he replied, chuckling. "She's just tired, not supposed to talk much." The phrase landed, like a stone. Not supposed to. I nodded and hurried inside, watching their car in the vending machine's reflection. He stared at the building, then drove off slowly. At a mildew-scented motel that night, the unease lingered. Jess slept, but I couldn't, haunted by the woman's hollow gaze. A faint knock came through the wall, like fingers dragging across drywall. Later, footsteps paced outside. Around midnight, I saw headlights sweep past our window. No, not headlights, just the silhouette of a car rolling by. My heart stopped when I recognized it. Same model, same dent, same faded sticker. They checked into a room nearby. I didn't sleep, every creak tightening my nerves. Once, the door handle jiggled faintly. At 5 a.m., I woke Jess, claiming I felt ill. We left before dawn. Later, I called the sheriff with every detail: the car, the motel, the man's chilling words. The deputy cut me off. "Unless something happened, we can't do much." Weeks later, I checked the motel's records. The room they'd entered was never rented that night. No trace of them. But her face, her silence, and his words, "not supposed to talk," still haunt me. I don't know what I saw, but I know it was wrong. In spring 2022, I needed an escape. My job in Salt Lake City had become a treadmill of meetings and emails, my life a blur of notifications. I craved silence, so I hit the road, southeast toward Colorado, with a paper map and no plan. I stayed, in budget motels or slept in my car, the quiet between radio signals a balm for my frayed nerves. Near Moab, after a dusty hike and tacos from a roadside truck, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my car, parked at a trailhead miles away, taken from a low angle, almost artistic. The timestamp matched when I'd been deep on the trail, alone. I replied, "Who is this?" No response. That night, at a dingy motel in Monticello, Another text arrived, a zoomed-in shot through my room's curtains, capturing me eating chips at the desk. My heart pounded. I showed the clerk, who shrugged. We get weirdos. The sheriff was no help. No direct threat, nothing we can do. I drove on, hyper-vigilant, covering my license plate, avoiding isolated stops. At a motel in Grand Junction, I set a trap. A flashlight and hoodie arranged to mimic someone in my car. Hours later, a hooded figure crept toward it, pausing at the bumper before fleeing to a waiting sedan. The plate was fake. Weeks later, fraud alerts hit my accounts, credit cards, bank logins. Whoever it was didn't want to hurt me physically. They wanted my identity, my life, pieced together from metadata and carelessness. Now, I travel differently. Phone off, plates covered, motels with multiple exits. They didn't touch me, but they got close, too close. And I'll never know how much they took. Road trips promise freedom, but these stories remind us of the shadows lurking beyond the headlights. If you've got a tale that chilled you to the bone, drop it in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more nightmares. Next up, 4 desert horror stories where the sands swallow your screams. Stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next tale.